From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Tisha Bader.
Hi, this is Micah Halpern sitting in for Tisha Bader, and here is the JBS News Update for Friday, March 25th, 2022. So far, since Russia invaded Ukraine, 12,000 Ukrainian refugees have been brought to Israel. Of those, 3,650 Ukrainian Jewish refugees are eligible to make Aliyah. That is, they can become citizens of Israel. 20,000 Ukrainians were in Israel before February 24th, the date in which Russia invaded, and they will be allowed to stay until the war ends. And 5,000 of them were granted visas. Several hundred Russians have left Russia and have also made Aliyah in this time. The Israeli government and private groups of Israelis are organizing to provide for the needs of these refugees. Not surprisingly, many of the refugees come with nothing except the clothes they are wearing and small bundles or suitcases that they could carry as they ran out of Ukraine and escaped to Moldova, Poland, Hungary, Romania, and from there to Israel. Ukrainian refugees have lost almost everything, most left without their husbands and fathers, who may not leave Ukraine. They must stay and fight. Families have no idea of the well-being of the men they left behind to wage war against the invading Russia. Many of them escaped Ukraine with their pets. They brought cats and dogs and hamsters and other pets. The Israeli ministry responsible for the care of the refugees has also been making arrangements for their pets. The ministry is informed in advance when the pet is arriving, and upon arrival, as an act of goodwill, the ministry's staff has provided for the needs of the Olim on all fours. The new immigrants on all fours, they have quality food, proper documentation, waiting for them in the new immigrants' room at Ben Gurion Airport. At least that part was made easier for these tired, desperate souls. Tel Shamayim means sky dew. This Tel Shamayim is Israel's newest anti-missile system, and as far as anti-missile systems go, this does not look very threatening. In fact, it looks like the white Goodyear blimp. Tel Shamayim was developed by the Israel Missile Defense Organization, the IMDO. It is a high-altitude early warning system designed to detect drones and missiles. Unlike the Goodyear blimp, these balloons don't travel. They are tethered the way a kite is tethered. They float and use their advanced radar technology to monitor and watch. One system has already been operational in the south of Israel, and now a second system was just positioned in the north of Israel. This balloon can stay up for an indefinite amount of time and can be raised higher or lower. This simple concept is dramatically important and will improve dramatically Israel's advanced warning system. Over the years, Israel has developed a multi-layered defense system to protect itself from an ever-evolving threat from Iran, from the Gaza Strip, from Hezbollah, from Lebanon, from Syria. Tel Shamayim, Sky Dew, joins the ranks of the Iron Dome system, which is for close-range threats, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems, which are for long-range threats. It's another set of Israeli eyes in the sky. There will most probably be a Shmurah Matzah shortage this year, and the shortage really is unquestionably Vladimir Putin's fault. Shmurah matzah is also known as hand-baked round matzah. Ukraine produces 20% of the world's grain, and surprisingly, they are also huge producers of the world's Shmurah matzah. In one city alone, the city of Dnipro, they have two very large matzah factories, bakeries. Chabad has one in Dnipro, and then there's another one. Most of Ukraine's matzah is normally exported. Some is made for internal use. On average, the former Soviet republics eat a lot of matzah, on average 2 pounds per person, twice as much of the matzah allocated for each Israeli soldier. Tiferes HaMatzahs, one of the factories in Dnipro, employs 100 people. Many of the workers have been baking matzah for generations, 3, 4, even 5 generations. They get their water from a well which sits 145 feet below ground. Under the oppressive Soviet regime, matzah baking was mostly illegal, but matzahs needed to be baked and eaten on Passover, and so underground matzah bakeries were organized. Locals would bring their own flour and give it to the bakers to turn into Shmurah matzah when they could. They also baked and tried to supply matzah for the rest of the community. In Ukraine today, there are 116 Jewish communities that will get matzah, but there will not be much matzah for export because the Russian invasion stopped that. There will obviously be fewer people in each of those communities to enjoy their homemade matzah. And now for a look at this evening's programming on JBS. Coming up at 6, it's live Shabbat services at New York City's Central Synagogue, followed by Shabbat services from the Hampton Synagogue. At 8:30, it's a concert from Michelle Citrin and Six13. At 9, in the film House on Wannsee Street, filmmaker Poli Martínez Kaplun confronts her mother and aunts about the Jewish identity concealed since World War II in this documentary about identity, resilience, and the plight of displaced persons. At 10:30, it's a replay of the Hampton Synagogue Services, followed by a replay from Central Synagogue. And coming up next, it's a look at this week's Torah Portion. This is Micah Halpern and the JBS News Update. I want to wish everyone a good evening and a Shabbat Shalom.